The next thing that I'm going to do is work with the date that they started the survey. I find the start date is useful for indicating the approximate time of the survey if you implemented it using Qualtrics. So let's look at the beginning of the start date variable. Here's a new function that I maybe haven't shown you yet, head. It's just quick way to see the beginning of some object, a variable or a matrix or a data frame. So here it has shown me the first 6 elements of this start date vector. You can change how many elements are shown by supplying additional arguments to head, but it really exists to provide a really fast way to just see the beginning of something, which is helpful. If I had thousands and thousands of cases, I probably wouldn't want to print the entire start date vector to the console. Although in this case, I can do that. It's not that big a deal because the data set's not that big. But I'm just going to look at the beginning of start date and notice that these dates are formatted as year, month, day, and then some time information. And I'm going to use that because I would like to know, most importantly, the year that the study was conducted, which is the same for everyone. They all did it on July 18th, 2015. You can see that. But if I wasn't 100% sure of that, then I might extract the time information for each participant like this. So I'm going to define a new variable year, and it's going to be the result of this substring function, which you probably haven't seen yet either. Substr here stands for substring. It will retrieve a portion of um, a character string. Start date is a vector of character strings. Substring will apply element-wise, and it's just going to take the first character through the fourth character, which for all of these should be 2, and then 0, and then 1, and then 5, because those are the first 4 characters in this string. But more importantly, it should be the year, whatever the year is for each individual participant. So I'm just going to run this portion of the code first. You can see what it has done. It's a vector of these strings, 2015. And I'm plugging that into as numeric because the characters that I extracted, if it worked the way I expected, should all be numbers. And so it should be possible for R to convert them to numbers representing the year that the participant, a 4-digit year that the participant carried out the study. So if I run this whole line of code, then year exists. And I can see that the first 6 elements are all the number 2015. And in fact, all of the elements are the number 2015. But if there was someone who did the study a year later, I would know about it this way, or at least I would be able to know about it. But all of the participants are 2015 in this case. I can do the same substring procedure to retrieve the month, the day, and the hour, because those are in fixed positions within these date strings that I observed earlier. So characters 6 and 7 are the month, 9 through 10 are the day, and 12 through 13 are the hour. And now I can see that information. So here's the full set of hours that they carried it out. If you're a Qualtrics user, you might have already observed that Qualtrics keeps track of timing in, I think, Mountain Time, 2 hours off from our Eastern Time. So if you needed to be that precise, then you would probably pay attention to that when thinking about these hours, and maybe even the days if there was someone who did it near midnight. Most of the time I care most about year, because I'm going to use it to calculate their age. I don't ask for age directly, I asked for the year that participants are born. So they supplied an answer like this. And I can just subtract it from the current year for each participant to obtain their age at the time they carried out the study, which in this case, I could just subtract them all from 2015, and that would be good enough. But this is a more general solution to that problem. Of course, it doesn't give their exact age. It gives their age if they had been born at the beginning of the year. in whatever year they were born. But I don't know their exact birthday, so I might as well just calculate it this way. And I know that it's either their age, their true current integer age, or 1 year off. I can see that those are now reasonable ages for people. So in this survey, participants selected the state or territory that they live in from a drop-down menu. All of the participants currently lived in the United States at the time of participation. That was a requirement for participation because a lot of the questions asked about their opinions of the U.S. legal system, and the scenario was presented as being about the U.S. legal system. So we wanted to make sure that that legal system felt at least a little bit personally relevant to participants. So they indicated where they lived, what state they lived in, as part of affirming that they lived in the United States, state or territory, although most of them lived in states. This is a drop-down menu. Qualtrics gave me these integer values for the positions in the drop-down menu, and I already have obtained lists of which ones correspond to these census regions. And so this line of code, which I've spread across 5 lines for visual convenience here, just recodes the state variable according to this long set of instructions. So the recode command takes a long string as the set of instructions for how to recode the variable, where each individual instruction is separated with a semicolon from the next individual instruction. And you can spread those instructions across multiple lines if it helps you keep your code organized. So these states are all in the south. Um, I don't know, I don't remember which states each of these numbers corresponds to, but I've confirmed that beforehand. So all of them are going to get recoded to south. These ones are in the west, these the Midwest, and these the Northeast. Those 4 are the highest level regions that the census uses for partitioning out the states. And then there's sub-regions within those, but that's good enough. I'm not even going to analyze this data, but it's just an illustration of how you would obtain this kind of data if you wanted to use it. Else equals NA is a common instruction at the end of a recode command using the recode function from car. Else is a special keyword in the recode function that refers to any other values that are present in the state variable besides the ones listed here. And which makes it different from the typical use of the word else in if statements that we might have talked about earlier. And all of those other values are going to get coded as missing values. The reason they're not all accounted for is that territories were acceptable responses to this question, but they're rare enough that I don't want to have a 5th region category for people who live in overseas territories. You can see when I ran the code, I selected this comment line. That's fine. The comment doesn't get executed. And I can see the first few regions for participants are Midwest, South, Northeast, South, Midwest, and South. And this prints the sort of full set of levels of the factor prints at the bottom when you print a factor to the console, confirming that I did convert the output of the recode function to a factor as intended. This variable indicates whether participants saw the rejection page. The survey had programmed in a rejection page if they were too young to complete it or did not live in the United States. That did not let them continue with the survey. So apparently 1 person saw that page, and the other 271 have a missing value here because that's how Qualtrics used to share its indicators of whether a participant saw something or not. And so I'm going to create a new variable that is called eligible and is true if rejection.saw was originally missing and false otherwise. So now 271 participants are labeled eligible and 1 is labeled ineligible. That 1 doesn't have responses to any of the survey questions anyway, so this step again doesn't really matter because they wouldn't be included in any of my analytic procedures. But sometimes I just like to have explicit information about who was and was not eligible.